Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Beyond the Clouds Edge to Edge Transformation. Speaking of transformation, I met Stephen Brook at one of the really amazing get togethers at Silicon Catalyst. And he is a catalyst. He has supported dozens of companies in different ways. Stephen, tell us about your journey and how did you end up becoming a catalyst for silicon and non silicon companies?
Well, it really went back to being about age 3. And my father built me a small board with a motor on it and a little button, which was the on off. And I played with this thing as a little kid, 3 years old. Pushed the button, the motor went. There was a place for a battery. The battery had to be in place. And at age 3, I discovered if I flipped the battery, the motor would go the other direction. And that got my interest in things electronic. And it just kept moving forward after that. When I was, probably about 10 years old, I knew about walkie-talkies and I really wanted one. So my dad bought a kit, Heath kit, walkie-talkies, and we built one. We built a pair together. He did most of the work, but I was there the whole time. And he was explaining what a resistor was, what a capacitor was, what an inductor was, what a transistor was. There weren't too many on that little board, and we got the thing working. And I had a walkie-talkie that I could have a range of probably about 2 city blocks. So I was really impressed. And that just started it all. I was not one of these people who didn't know what they wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to become an engineer, and I planned it starting in high school, and that's what I majored in college. I did briefly go into aeronautical engineering, but then I said electrical is the place to be, and did a bachelor's at University of Illinois, a master's at UCLA, and then later decided to get on the business side of things and went to Yale and got an MBA there. But I've been involved in tech the whole time, mostly in the semiconductor industry. A brief journey to Hollywood, not as an actor, but involved with 3D displays, and continue to do it. I actually started out in the aerospace industry. I worked for McDonnell Douglas, which is part of Boeing, doing flight control systems. And that was very fascinating thing to work on, control of big airplanes. And then then moved on to electronics, to the IC industry. I've worked at TRW, and then joined a startup called Zoran, and went public with them and grew up with them for quite some time until they were acquired and became part of Qualcomm. So it was a fascinating journey. I actually did what Silicon Valley is supposed to be all about.
Stephen, I guess your dad giving you that motor and you running it all day long reminds me how you have become the Energizer Bunny. Where do you get your energy from? You're always doing something, sometimes 2 or 3 companies.
Thank you for the compliment. It's mostly because I think I've been involved in things that I found very interesting, and when you do that, it becomes less work, quote unquote, if you will. And especially when you're dealing with the smaller companies, getting things going, there's lots to do. Some people might view it as very a big burden, but it's exciting to build something. And so all those things that you might in another situation view as just a burden, they really aren't so. And that's where you derive it from. I think it has to do with just doing something that you're interested in.
And you worked on all kinds of interesting things, 3D technology in the early days in Hollywood. You worked on flight controllers and now chip design, design automation. Uh, do you have one particular thing that you enjoyed the most?
One thing that stands out was being there for the digital camera revolution. When I joined Zoran, I met the CEO of the company at JFK Airport for an interview, and it was unlike any other interview I'd ever had in my life. We sat down, And instead of asking me all these details about my background and, did I know how to do this? Did I know how to do that? He pulled out this camera and he said, "This is a digital camera, and we're right in the middle of this. Our chip is inside of this thing, a very primitive, basic sort of thing." And he said, "This is what's going to take us forward." And we spent all this time talking about how cameras were going digital and all the things about the resolution and the processing and this, that, and the other. And by the time it was time for his flight, we'd gone through all the dynamics of a camera and hardly spoke much about me. But I could tell that interweaved in the whole thing, he was learning about who I was, and I was sold. I was sold on that company. I was sold on that activity, and I think it convinced him that I was somebody who was good for that role to help build up the company. So it's very exciting to been part of something that really changed the way we do things.
And isn't that interesting that you and I have never really talked about any specific technology, but we talk about everything under the sun? You're now in the middle of a new startup. What do you
Yeah,
look for when you are hiring people?
curiosity. I would say anybody when they're bringing people into organization, they want certain skills and the longer they've been in industry or a certain track record, etc. But I think, in my view, the most important thing is intense curiosity about things, because people who are smart, who have some relevant experience and have an intense curiosity about things, they're the ones who are going to dive in on their own when they wake up on Saturday morning and start studying a topic and absorbing it and really getting into it. So I've always viewed myself as quite a curious person about many different topics. That's why we talk about everything, but not necessarily the technical things. And people who have a curiosity, especially the curiosity in something related to the domain that you're going to be involved in, that's an important thing. Some people are really smart; they're not that curious. Um, but when you get that component, you can do a lot with it.
And I've seen the curious side of you. And you even showed up for my birthday, and it was a healing session. That was fun. That was
Yeah,
fun.
what a birthday party! Get an invite. Get an invite. These are great. These are great event.
So, speaking of curiosity and doing different things, you worked in multiple industries. How is it helping you in the new things that you're doing? That you worked in distinct spaces as well as educationally, you worked in multiple things as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. I think if you've worked in multiple areas, after you've moved from one to another, it gives you a certain confidence that you can take on something new. Before you've ever done that, you think, yeah, maybe I get it. I've got experience in one thing. Maybe I'm getting good at that, but you might be hesitant. Some people might be afraid to do something that's not right on the path, if you will. But once you've done it once and you realize, hey, just you know, put your shoes on every day, get at it, and that you can learn what you need to learn and find a way to contribute and then become knowledgeable, maybe even expert. You have confidence that you can do it in something else also. Okay, so I think that's one of the key things that having done some different things taught me. It takes a certain confidence and it takes a certain attitude of, hey, it's going to work out, because you could always think, well, I haven't done this, I don't know this, et cetera, et cetera. But if you just let that go, you'd be surprised how far you can go with things.
So, Stephen, as you know, you worked in small companies, you worked in large companies, public companies. It's very comfortable working in large companies. What brings you back to the discomfort or the challenges of startups again and again, some of them internationally as well?
Well, to put it bluntly, they're a lot of fun. I mean, I've enjoyed time that I've had in the larger companies. They've done some really amazing things, but I encourage people to explore small companies, startup companies, because they're just plain a lot of fun. I mean, you're making it happen, and everything you do, you can see the result immediately. You can see the effect. You can see the effect on the people you work with, and it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. I mean, and of course, in a small company, there's the potential for some big opportunity for you, but day to day, it's just exciting to be building something from the ground up.
Um, Tell us a little bit about where you see things going now. There's so much chaos in the market. There's AI, there's metaverse. Is it really going to help us in the long run?
Something good and useful is going to come out of it. Let me just give you an example, in my thinking at least. Okay, the whole effort that's gone into autonomous vehicles. Now we actually see autonomous vehicles. I was in San Francisco a couple of days ago, and I was about to cross the street, and there was a car without anybody in it. Okay, so it's actually happening, and perhaps it happens. Okay, but let's say we moved along and we just came to the conclusion that you just can't go all the way there. Okay, um, in some sense it doesn't matter. There's going to be so much good developed out of the effort to reach autonomous vehicles. It's already there. Semi-autonomous capabilities, the kind of things Tesla started to put in, and everybody's putting in. Um, all the advances in image processing that's coming out of it. So I'm not so worried. A lot of good things are going to come out of that effort. Okay, and it's the same with other things when we talk about virtual reality or whatever. Even if it doesn't reach that ultimate thing that people in the beginning say they're looking for, you're going to get so much great stuff out of it anyway that it's not that much of a concern. Now, if you're investing in a particular company that's going to do a particular thing, yes, that may have a different impact on you personally. But from a broader point of view, we're going to get a lot of benefit from all of these things.
So you worked in a whole bunch of startups recently. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of things you've done and how each one of them contributed uh, to the advancement of knowledge, whether or not they were successful?
Well, I wouldn't say a whole bunch, but I've been involved in a few, and everything from security, cybersecurity, to developments in chip design for verification, for AI, IoT, and each of them are making their own efforts to do something better, and they continue those efforts. I was recently involved in one that was doing things for verification. They have some very good product, very good development, taking time to catch on. But I think when industry catches on, people will be able to design chips faster. Of course, you've come from that world. To make people change is really difficult. Okay, people don't want to take a risk to change their design flow, but I see that as an example of one where chip design will be done faster when what they do gets accepted.
When you and I went to college, there was a defined path. You could do engineering and maybe business later. Today it's getting fuzzier. The number of things that are getting outdated is really fast. With generative AI, we may not even be doing much coding in future. What advice do you have for people who are new in the profession or are trying to change their careers?
For me personally, I think it goes back to some basic things that are not new under the sun. First off, go for something that you're interested in. Okay, uh, often people will say you got to be infatuated with something. I don't think you have to go that far, but it's got to be something that can really hold your interest, because that's the kind of thing you can put energy into. The old advice about just getting very good in what you're doing, still applies. I mean, we talk about software development. I think you know if you learned one or two languages really well, you could learn anything. Okay, so it wasn't that you become out of date because there's something new, but you just have to be good to start with, and then be able to take that, be willing and able to put in the effort to take that skill and put it in other places. And the thing I would advise everybody to do, and you're very good at this, is not just totally focus in their on their work world. I mean, their work is their number one thing that they're doing, but get out there, go to events, um, Silicon Catalyst, where we met. Go to these kind of things. Build your network. Get to know people. It's good for you no matter what stage you are, no matter what you're doing. It doesn't mean you're looking for a job or you're looking to raise money. Just being connected with people helps you keep the pulse on things and helps you to make adjustments in your career going forward. But if you just go into your corner every day and don't have any connection with the outside world, then sometimes you wind up in a place perhaps that it's harder to pivot from.
Very true. Pivoting has become the way of life now. So, Stephen, besides the type of companies you worked at, you've also worked in many different geographies, different cultures. What have you learned out of these things, and in what way has it contributed to the richness in your own life?
Well, taking the last part, it's a lot of richness. From an early age, I was, interested in culture, different cultures, geography. My parents both immigrated. Okay, so it was something, different cultures was something that was close to me. Okay, and at an early age, well, starting at age 16 with my family, and then later on my own, I did personal travel. I would take weeks off. I even took leave of absence from work and went off for weeks at a time or even months at a time early on in my career and traveled the world. So it always was of interest to me, different cultures. And then in the work world, very quickly it became apparent that we are international, and to the point where I don't even consider it like some special thing. By definition, your market is the world. Okay, your source of talent is the world. Your thinking is global. I mean, it doesn't even occur to me to be any different. The opportunity to experience those from my work experience to me actually a big benefit, a big plus. I was really thrilled that was part of the job, and I've enjoyed the whole thing, learning about the different cultures. Of course, in working with people in different cultures, sometimes there's misunderstandings, and sometimes there even it can be some sort of a clash. And but just the process of understanding how people think about things is interesting. And then once you get a handle on things, then you figure out how best to work with people. It seemed like kind of a natural thing for me, and I think fundamentally it came from understanding that there are differences, and just accept them and start to work with them. Don't try to make everybody do things like your experience, okay? Because you run into trouble. You run into a lot of trouble if you do that. And how it benefits. First off, it allows you to work in this world that is, by definition, international, and it makes you more agile, more flexible in other ways. It just makes you able to think about that people may have other views than your own. In terms of culture, it's because they're from another place, but that can happen. That can happen in other domains. So I think overall, it's just a very enriching experience and makes you better at what you do. And the food, you get exposed to a lot of great food.
Now, when you traveled around the world and worked from different places, there must have been challenges such as the digital divide. Some people have very advanced technology, some don't. Some know much more than others. Do you think the way things are happening technologically is getting worse or better in terms of the digital divide?
Well, in terms of the digital divide, in terms of my work, the people I've worked with, they're at our level. Okay, so that's not the issue. I think what you're addressing is in the world there is a digital divide. It's hard for me to comment, but I'm hoping that technology may mitigate that. As we all know, there was a divide in terms of communication ability some years ago, and then all of a sudden the mobile phone got people in less developed places that didn't have a communications infrastructure. All of a sudden, they could do what we could do. So there was this big jump. Wasn't like it was planned out, but it just turned out that in some small village somewhere, people could have access via mobile phone, whereas they still don't have a landline running to those places.
With all these technological advances, the hope was that we would be working less, we would have a lot of free time. But so far, at least, the opposite seems to be happening. We are busier than ever before, and we have no time to relax. Where do you see the world going with this trajectory? How do you see yourself or others continuing to work as we go forward?
I think that will continue. I don't think that a solution for that has been has been discovered yet. But let me know when it does. I think if you look historically, they thought this 100 years ago. Okay, and as automation started to take off, and they talked about all the free time that people would have, and that didn't happen. So I think each generation uh, they have this thought at first that there's going to be a lot more free time. We just seem to be able to fill it up. So I don't know how it's going to change, but do let me know. Do let me know if something develops.
And what about this whole chat GPT and generative AI revolution? At least a lot of things that were considered intellectual are going to go away or will be reduced significantly. Will there be a lot of unemployed people?
Well, that's the big question. I think in the past you've had developments and there's some disruption among some people, but overall, um, people will work with it and find the next level of things to be engaged in. So overall, I don't personally think that there's going to be this terrible disruption. I'm watching, observing, trying to understand, just like everybody else.
Well, Stephen, it's always nice to be around you because your optimism, your enthusiasm is infectious. So
Well, thank
next
you.
time we have an IPO, I'll be there at the party and let's celebrate together. And it'll be time to continue hearing more from you.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Always great to talk to you too.
And everybody out there, I'm always looking for new ideas, the new ways of looking at things, because that's how we can piece together the future. No one has a crystal ball. So please come forward. Let me know what you want to talk about, and let's party. Thanks again, Stephen.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to being with you again at Silicon Catalyst and many other places.
Yes, same here. Take care.